Well, hi there, everyone. And this week we're going to do something continuing on our crafting images and landscape shots. So they're basically just better photographs, and they're better at directing the subject to where you want them to look. And in this case, we've got a panoramic. And I'll show you the frames left to right. So 1, 2, 3, 4. This is actually on Route 163, just crossing over into Utah from Arizona, just north of Monument Valley. It's a cool spot, and we had really nice cloudscapes, as you can see. And these are actually the raw, untouched images. You can take a look up here in the panel, in the adjustment panel, and see that nothing has been done yet. So it really was kind of a perfect day. But we do want to add a little bit more drama, a little bit more contrast, a little bit more pop to the images. And also if there's any spots. In fact, I think I see a spot right here. Let's see. Yep, there's a spot. So let's start out by just fixing one of these images. And this one has probably what's going to be the primary feature in it. So let's hit the Q key, which is the same as clicking on this thing, which brings up the spot removal tool. And Q and A, of course, is spot removal and show me. So I'm not seeing it there. Let's increase the sensitivity. And there it is. Looks like we have 2 or maybe 3. This just allows you to see the spots better. If you have these perfect circles, that means there's a spot there. There's one there. Here's a lighter one right there. We'll get rid of that. And I'll actually see 2 more. There's one right here. And there's one right here. And even though they aren't particularly visible, you're going to find that as you start to increase contrast and add some detail that some of these things might show up. So best to get rid of them first. I'm not sure about right here. It looks like this might be a cloud. Yeah, that's nothing. All right, so we've got our spots, and we can continue on from here. We'll hit done on that. And let's just look at some basics. If we look at the histogram, it's pretty good. There's no pure whites, even though there's clouds here. Probably could bring up the exposure a little bit in preparation for what we're going to do. Let's just bring it up. We'll bring it up, just about a quarter of a stop there, plus 25. And highlights, shadows, whites, blacks are good for now. Maybe add a little bit of contrast. Let's see what happens when we do that. Oh, look at the difference. That's what we needed. Need the contrast here. And apparently I shot this without having a circular polarizer on my lens. That's why it does kind of look a little bit flat. So let's add some contrast to bring some life back there. Good. Let's go ahead. Let's see texture. You know what? Since we have this beautiful clean sky, I'm going to do things like texture and clarity locally rather than globally. So let's just go ahead. We'll add a little vibrance to add some intensity to the sky. Bring that back a little bit. And we'll add some saturation to bring out some of the reds and other colors in the desert surrounding this mesa. All right, looking pretty good. Now, one thing I do notice is that we do kind of have 2 color temperatures here. We've got the foreground and then we've got the sky. And just by adding a little bit of vibrance, I think the sky has turned a little bit cyan. So let's drop down here to HSL, which is Hue, Saturation, and Luminance. And I'm going to get the Hue button, get the targeted slider here. And I'm going to add about plus 12, I think. That's usually my go-to on these, just to make the sky really more of the western blue that is really there. And to add a little bit more drama, I'm also going to go to Luminance, and I'm going to darken the sky a little bit. There we go. And I'm guilty of probably spending most of my time when I'm out west wearing polarized sunglasses, so this is what I'm used to seeing. I'm sure if I took the polarized sunglasses off, it would be a little bit flatter. All right, that's looking pretty good. It's a pretty good start. So let's go ahead. I've got the 4 frames selected. Let's click on Synchronize, and we're going to choose all. And the beauty of that is including spot removal, because remember, the spots are going to be the same place on every shot on the sensor. We can just click Synchronize, and it will fix all 4 frames in one fell swoop. So now as we come over to the left, middle, right, and on all the way over. Now, we may not end up using this entire frame, but we'll see. Now, there seems to be a little bit of a curve down, and I can't remember if that was actually a feature of the landscape. Pretty sure I was shooting this on a gimbal head that was stabilized. but I could be wrong. Actually, let's see. Yeah, let's find out. One of the beauties of Lightroom is that the panoramic stitching module in here is quite amazing. So let's just cut to the chase, go up to Photo, Photo Merge, Panorama, and see what it can do with it. All right, so there's our stitch, and again, you can see it is pretty straight. And what the panorama thing is doing is it's assuming you were not on a gimbal head, and you were not stabilized, and you were not shooting on the nodal point. So it builds in these curves, making that assumption. Well, in this case, that was wrong. We need to undo what Lightroom has added to this by countering that boundary warp. So we're going to bring that all up. And look, doesn't that look better? Doesn't everything look a lot flatter and look like our originals? So we do this, we're actually letting Lightroom introduce a problem that did not exist. And if you're shooting on a nodal point on a rotation for landscapes with a panoramic head, this is actually something you're going to have to overcome. So let's just get rid of that. And that's looking pretty good. So let's click on Merge. Our panorama is now stitched together. You can see down the bottom left here we have the icon for it. So let's bring that up and let's take a look and see what's going on. And it is certainly a lovely panoramic scene. The question is, do I want all of it? What are the issues? Well, we have this kind of opening here, probably a little bit more than we need because it's just a long space of nothing. Now that is coming up. It is giving us a little bit of a leading line up here into the mesa. That's good. Down here, we've got another formation out here followed by one of these pillars. And I think that this one needs to go. And the reason I say that is because it's an interesting shape, it does kind of draw the eye. And we don't want to draw the eye to the edge of the picture and have people leaving. So let's take a look with the crop tool and see what it is that we might want to do here. So let's bring in from the right. And I'm thinking just want to get rid of that one. In fact, I may change my mind and completely get rid of that totally. So let's put it there first. Let's bring in a little bit from the left. And you can see again, I've got my, not my rule of thirds grid, but my, if you look onto the tools, go to crop guide, you can see that I have the golden ratio grid on, and that is giving us a good spot. And you can see we've got basically the horizon right on the lower grid there. So let's crop here first and see where that puts us. And you know, as much as I like this stuff over here, I think it's more of a distraction than it's worth. Let's crop in some more. Do I want to keep a little bit of it? Not sure. I might want to completely or almost completely get rid of it. Let's see what happens if we go here. And I'm not sure. Let's back up again and see. Let's go about halfway through it and see if that gives us kind of a visual block. You know, I might like that because if you continue along the horizon after the main feature, and we have these two pieces here, as you travel off to the right, you hit this dark thing, and it does kind of stop you from leaving the image and kind of pushes you back. All right, so I think we're going to leave that. Now, I think there might be a little bit too much sky as well. However, I really love this, whatever this thing is that's going on in the clouds here. So I think we're going to actually jump out of Lightroom and do some stuff in Photoshop in a couple of minutes. But let's first finish what we're going to do in Lightroom. So I mentioned I wanted to add some texture and clarity to the formation in here. Let's do it with a brush though. So I'm going to get brush turn on auto mask right here. And I've got the selected mask overlay set. Give myself a nice big brush. And I'm going to paint over these formations so that I can add some more oomph to them. Don't really need, the front is pretty good. All that grass right up at the front has got a lot of texture to it, so we'll leave that alone. Let's just get all this stuff. All right, so let's hit O to toggle off the overlay. And then we're going to add our texture and clarity at this point, because this was going to keep us from having to affect the sky. So I'm going to add a bunch of texture in here, which is subtle in a landscape like this. And then we'll add some clarity, which will have a little bit more pop to it. Yeah, see, we got much better definition on this primary piece. Don't think we need dehaze. It's a very clear day. I'm going to hit done with that. Also, I am going to put a little dehaze on here. You can see how the deep shadows in this formation are a little bit light. So I'm going to, again, hit the O key. We're going to do a separate one just on this. Actually, that's pretty good right like that. O to toggle it off. And I'm going to add a dehaze so that way we can darken that up a bit. I don't want to go black with it, but I want to make it dark enough so that it does form that visual block. Still undecided about keeping that. We might look at a couple of different crops here. All right, now I mentioned I thought there was a little too much sky. And the reason I say this is if you look at the physical size, the physical volume from the foreground here up to the top of the formation, it's almost the same size as from here to the top. Even though we have our horizon on the lower third, it's getting a little bit too much half and half for my liking. Also, and I'm going to cheat a little bit here because we're crafting a landscape. We're not necessarily doing a geological survey. This slope here, if you look at it and you stare at it, because it's coming down so low, does have a little bit of an effect of kind of maybe drawing you out of the image, partly because it's light over here. We could fix that with some vignetting, but I have a couple of other ideas. So the things I want to do now are going to need to be done in Photoshop. And this still doesn't look too bad. Let's look at it full screen. I mean, this would make a lovely print. In fact, just to see, one of the standard print sizes is actually a 3:1 aspect ratio. Let's see what 3:1 gives us. And I'm going to have to come in here, something like that. And actually, that's looking pretty good if we go 3:1 there, but there's too much over here. So yeah, I think we really need to go back to where we were. Let's go back to our original crop that I had liked. I'll hit done on that. And let's send this into Photoshop. Now this is a pretty big file at this point. In fact, if we hit the I key, you can see, look, it's 11,000 pixels across, which is pretty big print if you want it. I mean, we could easily make this a 6-foot wide print and it would be perfectly clean. But let's go ahead and send it into Photoshop, and there's a couple things I want to do with it. So Command E to send it into Photoshop, or Control E on a Windows machine. So here we are in Photoshop, and you see here we have our background layer. First thing I'm going to do is Command J to create a duplicate of this, or you can drag it down to the new box, which is now a box with a plus in it, which does the same thing. Command or Control J is what you're going to really remember if you get used to doing this. Now, I had mentioned that the sky was too much volume above the piece. It's so big it's competing. And again, even though the horizon's in a good spot, if we kind of think maybe at the top of this mesa as horizon also, you can see it's kind of dead center. So we need to put a little bit more, take a little bit of the balance out. And what I'm thinking, I'm going to bring up the rulers, which is Command or Control R. Let me put my tools back here. All right, so Command R to bring up our rulers. And I'm going to drag one from the top ruler here. I'm going to drag down, and I'm thinking maybe I want to have the sky be about this much. And although it's going to kind of put the horizon dead center, if we look at it that way, there's kind of multiple horizons here. You could see either of the tops of the mesa be a horizon as well. So I'm going to go with that. However, as I mentioned, I love this cloud up here and I don't want to lose it. And if we had used a different lens, maybe we could have compressed this a bit. But since I didn't, I'm going to go ahead and get the marquee tool, the M, and I'm going to select the entire sky, actually overlapping over the top of the mesa a little bit, and come up to Edit, Content Aware Scale. And we're going to compress these clouds down a little bit so that they fit in within this line that I've decided is about how high I want this to be. So since I only wanted to do it in one direction, I hold down the Shift key and I start dragging down. And you can see there's, look at our lovely cloud is now right at the top of that. And it still looks completely normal. Hit enter and Photoshop does its magic. So that's one of the beauties when you have a cloud that isn't quite cooperating, or it's, it's just a little bit out of the frame where you wanted it, but you like the shape of it. So that's one way you can get it. Okay, now one other thing I want to do with this. I mentioned that I thought maybe this slope over here was a little bit too extreme. So I'm going to get the M tool again right on there, and I'm going to go to Edit, Transform, Warp. And I'm going to push up on the left side a little bit. See what I'm doing here? I'm actually just going to flatten that slope out just a little so it doesn't feel like it's draining you out of the image, but kind of rather leading you in. It's a very subtle change, but it actually has a big effect on the image. So if I deselect that and I toggle this on and off, you can see what we've done. I've moved the clouds down a smidge. They got a little compressed. But just by flattening out this little edge, now this forms more as a lead-in as you watch the image from left to right, rather than here where it kind of does have a tendency because of this slope to like roll you out of the image. Again, subtle, but I like it. What else? Well, do we want to get rid of these little fence posts here? I don't find them all that offensive. I'm actually okay with keeping them. However, I'm going to make another copy, Command J. Let's see what one looks like with those gone. So I'm going to get the Z tool, move into here. Yeah, there is a lot of fence, and these fences do exist all around this area. So actually, no. However, since we are in Photoshop, I am going to do my light burning and dodging here because it is a little bit more powerful. Also, by the way, since I'm here, I'm going to Command or Control click on this icon, which gives me the image minus the piece we're no longer going to keep. So I'm just going to come up to Image Crop, and that will get rid of that extra bit of sky that we're no longer going to use. We'll get to see how that looks. Okay, so there's our image cropped. We can get rid of the guide. We don't need that anymore. So we'll come up to View, Clear Guides. And we don't need our rulers anymore either. All right, so actually we don't even need this extra layer. We ended up creating it, don't need it. So let's just get rid of it to save some space. All right, now does this work as is? Yes, with a little bit of but. Yes, because it does show the entire environment. And although you do go here, because this is the main feature, you do also explore around. There's so many interesting things going on the brush, the red dirt, and the darkness over here, which is natural as part of it, stops you from leaving. The only thing I'm not completely thrilled with is this is a little light over here, and we really want the viewer to go here. Again, our vignette may fix that, but let's go ahead and take control a little bit more. So I'm going to create a blank layer just by clicking on there, and I'm going to change it to overlay. And what overlay allows me to do is paint with black and white to basically burn and dodge. So I've got black in the foreground. I'm going to get a brush, and I'm going to make my brush, let's make it about yo big. And I'm going to make the opacity, right now it's 30, I'm going to make it 10. And to do that quickly, just type 1 on your keyboard and notice the opacity changes to 10. So I'm going to darken this up a little bit. And again, we're only working at 10%. So this should be a fairly subtle darkening of the image. And again, things take a little time here because we are actually right now dealing with an enormous file. Let's make it a little bit smaller. I'm going to come back in here. There we go. See how that just got a little bit darkened? Actually, this very corner here, just a little bit too light for me. And we'll take really the edge of the bottom of this little bit of brush here. We'll bring that down. And anywhere else need to be darkened. Maybe a little bit down here as well. All right, so while I'm here, let's go ahead and zoom over here to this little fence post. I'm just going to lasso around it, hold down the Alt key, and get rid of that. And I'm going to use the keyboard shortcut just to cut to the chase. Function Shift F5, which brings up content aware fill. Just going to do normal, hit OK, and let's see what it does. Et voila, it's gone. Now let's come down to the bottom. To this little bit of white brush here, we're going to do the same thing. I'm just going to draw around that. Again, Function Shift F5, content aware fill, that's gone. Not that I have anything against this brush, it's just because of where it's cut off, it's a little bit of a distraction. Function Shift F5, and that's gone as well. All right, that looks better. Okay, anything else I think we can do in Lightroom? And by the way, when I did that little burning and dodging, it doesn't look like I really did anything. But watch when I turn it on and off. It's subtle, but it's powerful. Notice this is down a little bit, but mostly look over here on the left, and you can see that very slight darkening of that side of the image keeps your eye from automatically going here. Now you're more free to come up to the mesa. All right, so let's hit save and send this back into Lightroom. And here's our image in Lightroom. How do we know it's not the original? You can see a little bit of brush down here is gone, and also that one little last fence post leaning up against the wall is gone. So let's go ahead and add our vignette. Again, I'm going to do about -12. And as we turn that on and off, you can see the difference. And yeah, that darkens the edges just enough that recenters you in the image. But let's go up to basic again. I think I want to try a little bit more light painting on this. So I'm going to get a brush, turn off auto mask, turn on O for our overlay, and I'm going to create a path that comes up to our primary feature, which is right there. So I'm going to hit O to hide that, and I'm just going to bring up the exposure a little bit, just so I just start seeing it happen. And it made the mesa maybe a little too bright, so I'm going to add some clarity and texture, add a little bit more contrast to it, and I'm actually going to bring the highlights down a little. And it's a very subtle set of corrections, but it just opened this up a little bit that you're going to subliminally go there. So I'm going to create a couple of virtual copies of this, Command '1, 2, and let's just try out a couple of different crops. All right, so you can see I've got my 2 extra spare copies down here. Let's bring up the crop tool and try a couple of different options. Now, this crop as is will work, but it does need to be a big print so that you can take everything in. Let's see what happens if we were to simplify. Let's bring the crop in, say, there and to there, so that the print is really just about the center. In fact, I'm going to leave that alone. I like that bit of brush there. And there's a crop in the middle. Honestly, I have to say I don't like it. It loses so much of the environment and the storytelling of the place that not my favorite choice. Let's come over to one more, and let's see what it would look like in a standard frame size. Now, a 3:1 frame size is a standard frame size available. You can get them in Michaels. So let's come up to original. I created a custom frame size of 3:1, and let's see, where do we want to go vertically, horizontally? I'm thinking probably split it into thirds like that. Do I want a little bit of the top of that cloud? I want to make sure there's enough base underneath the mesa itself to support it. So I'm thinking about right there. And let's make sure we still have our vignette in place. And honestly, I can say I do like that a lot. That would really work as a framed print. So let's again see our choices. There's the crop with just the middle. Honestly, I can say I'm really not fond of this. And then our original, which is my favorite, provided it's going to be a big print. This would need to be at least 36 inches across for it to work, so that this mesa in the middle has enough physical size in the print. I do like the 3:1 though as well. So hey, at that point, the preference is yours. Where are you going to hang it? What are you going to do with it? The 3:1 does have the advantage in that it's a standard frame size, so it's going to be a lot cheaper to get on your wall. So anyway, That's it for now. We did some fairly simple but fairly impactful edits to this image by darkening up the left side, flattening this slope so that your eyes don't literally roll out of the picture, and just getting rid of a couple little distractions to turn a pretty good set of raw shots into a really nice panoramic landscape. So that's it for now. Hope you enjoyed that. Hope you understood the thought process. Thanks for watching. Thanks for reading, and I'll see you online again soon. Be well, everybody. Bye-bye.